Hi everyone, welcome back to Be Rich. I thought today we'd talk about something a lighter, a little more fun, and nothing too serious. After the lots of serious topics me and Chachas have been running into, so today I thought we'd talk about football and football clubs and the crazy amount of money these guys are sloshing in. And is it really justified? Can a club justify spending this kind of money? Do they actually make a profit at the end of this? So, of course, the breaking news is Saudi Arabia has offered Mbappe transfer over $300 million. So I thought Shashwat can jump into this.
Yeah. Before we talk about this, I wanted to first give you an idea of how these sort of clubs work, and so let's look at some of these star players. So when you look at grassroots players, that is those who come from the academy. So I just want to give you an idea of how these clubs work. So first, you have one way in which they get players. One is through their academy, where you have, be it Manchester United, the team I support, or any other club where they have your academy training, which happens for very young but promising kids. And then you move up the under 15, under 12, and then you move up the ranks. So under 15, and then you move up to under 18. And then finally, you play in the big leagues where you finally play with your actual club, the A team. That is one way in which you progress. So some of the players, at least from the club which I support, like Mason Greenwood or Marcus Rashford, was a big hit, who was an academy player who came out and became a star in British football. So that's one way in which people recruit players, and another way in which clubs end up recruiting players is by actually transferring. This is the biggest way in which clubs pass around stars amongst themselves. Depending on their performance, the stars value goes down or up. So you can sort of imagine this as trading stocks based on how they perform in terms of earnings. So we don't recommend this, of course, but then this is how clubs work, and football is a little different from how stocks work, of course. So speaking of that, one of the biggest transfers before Mbappe was Ronaldo, and when he transferred from, so he's the biggest, was, and still I guess arguably is to some extent the biggest star of football, and he transferred from Real Madrid to Juventus, and then from Juventus to Manchester United. And Manchester United paid about I think 12.5 million pounds for his transfer. And this is how clubs make money. One is through, of course, distribution rights and stuff, and they make money off of branding and sponsorships. But another way in which they make money is through merchandise. They produce this merchandise for cheap in China and in bulk, and then they ship it everywhere. So they get a premium for the branding which they put on it. And they bought Ronaldo for 12.5 million pounds. And this might seem like a hefty amount, but just in the first 10 days, they sold T-shirts for a whopping 13 million pounds of profit just in the first 10 days of Ronaldo transferring. And in one fell swoop, they basically recovered all their costs of transferring this big star into their club. Yes, you could say that Ronaldo had legacy, Alex Ferguson, whatnot, but this is an idea of how stardom works in football, and there's a lot of money to be made. That being said, let's look at the exorbitant amount which Saudi Arabia is willing to just dish out to bring football onto their grounds. Of course, Saudi isn't a place which is known much for football, of course, because football has generally always been, Italy, Germany, the Bundesliga, or the Premier League, or you have your La Liga. So you have all these different individual tournaments which happen in these European countries, and I guess you also have your Copa America, which is your South American countries. But you've never heard of a story of a Saudi Arabian club which has become such a big sensation. But all this changed when they brought Ronaldo over last year, and they brought in Ronaldo for a whopping sum of money, something which is lesser than Mbappe, of course, but they brought him over for a whopping sum of money for a player who's about 38. Generally, players are supposed to peak out at their 30s, like 31, 32. Their value starts declining, and Saudi Arabia is trying to throw money and trying to bring football onto their grounds and trying to cash in on this market and give competition to the English Premier League. Interestingly enough, the Manchester City, the reigning champions, is also owned by Saudi owners, and they keep pumping in money and keep accumulating these trophies. So Saudi involvement in football, they have an obsession with football, and it's not something new. So Mbappe is just another piece in their puzzle to be able to bring football onto their grounds. I'm not sure how successful it'll be, but that's what I'm sensing right now.
Okay, so let's give a little bit of context. Why Saudi Arabia, after all these years, it's not like Saudi Arabia didn't have money before. They've been sloshing in money, lots of money for a very long time. And they've usually refrained from all this. Yes, football has been very popular in Saudi Arabia, but it's in a very lower strata of society there. It is a game much loved by the Saudi youth and the Saudi people, but it's never percolated to the top where the royal family was involved in it. And even the ownership of these clubs and involvement in the club's financials and buying these clubs, there were very few select Saudis who were involved in it. It wasn't really propagated through the country or supported by the royal family and publicly acknowledged. But why has a sudden U-turn happened in Saudi Arabia? Well, this all happened when the crown prince decided to open up the country. When he decided to open up the country, he has different ways of opening up the country. One of his main ways of opening up the country, he's decided is to become a bigger version of Dubai. That's why in the western portion of the country, Jeddah side of the country, he's opened up and he's building. Most of his huge investments are coming up there. He's trying to bring a PGA version of golf there, which they got into a fight with PGA. Now they've reconciled and both have been merged and things have been worked out and ironed out. Then he's bringing the F1 race there, and he wants
Yeah.
to bring tennis there, and now he's bringing football. And football, for us, it may seem like a huge amount of money, but the kind of money he personally sits on and the Saudi wealth fund is sitting on, the sovereign fund of Saudi Arabia, this is nothing. This is just like a sneeze for them. But the
Yeah.
point is, by bringing this, he's bringing eyeballs into Saudi Arabia and bringing and buying all these soccer football players and making them come and play in Saudi Arabia and live in Saudi Arabia. He's going to encourage more people to visit Saudi Arabia, tourists to come to Saudi Arabia, and he's going to jumpstart Saudi Arabia into a hot destination for tourism. That is his ultimate goal and aim here. He wants the investors to come in. He wants Saudi economy to be opened up and remove its reliance from oil and move to other sections of
Yeah.
the economy and dilute the influence of oil in its economy because oil is dying. And eventually a day will come when nobody will be putting petrols in their car and diesel in their car. He knows this. So he wants to quickly diversify and kickstart the Saudi revival, as you would call it, and take it somewhere else. Will this work? I don't know, because it is a huge 180-degree flip in Saudi
Turn.
society.
Yeah.
Saudi society historically has been a very closed society. The people are also very closed. Yes, they're very friendly when you go to visit them, when you meet them and all that, but that's about it. Their friendship stays towards the border, and internally they're very closed and very private and very conservative society. Yes, the generations of children which have been slowly coming up, like Shasha's generation, and the generations coming after Shasha's generation, are more liberal, are more open, have traveled. Before that, most Saudis do not leave the country. They don't even visit countries nearby. Where you see these things of a lot of Saudis traveling, those are just the very small minority of Saudis who are very wealthy and very rich. Majority of the Saudis do not travel, do not move out of the country much. But that has changed. More and more Saudis are taking the passport and traveling. Women rights have been slowly been introduced. There's a lot of reform happening in the country, but this will also upset the conservative population of the country. So there is a lot of push and pull which is happening within Saudi Arabia. And one of the ways he's trying to appease to both sides is football, because football is loved by the conservatives, it's loved by the liberals in Saudi Arabia, and that's something they can rally behind, especially after the performance of Saudi Arabian team in the last World Cup, where they won a match and it just went berserk and it lit up the whole world. This is one of the best ways he can showcase his country, showcase the development of Saudi Arabia. So he's trying to bring in football in a big way into Saudi Arabia. That is his justification for him spending $300 million. Is it smart? I don't know. Will it really work out? We'll have to wait and watch, because we have had a long history with these kind of regimes where they've tried to bring in this kind of limelight onto the country, and it has failed spectacularly. It has not gone very well, and it's landed them in more trouble than necessary. Problem for him is people like Mbappe and Ronaldo, they also like to play in a certain environment, in a certain club, and compete with certain players on the pitch. As long as he brings more and more people like Mbappe and his cohorts over, they would be loved staying. But if he's not able to encourage more and more like people like Mbappe to come over and play in Saudi Arabia, it won't go very far. Way back, America brought David Beckham into the United States for the same reason,
The
to bring
MLS.
a revival, yeah, revival of football and soccer in the country. But unfortunately for David Beckham, he was way ahead of the curve. So he came and he did his bit, but it took a good decade after he came for American soccer and football to really take off and to become what it is. So I don't know if Mbappe will be making a smart decision. I don't think he'll just make purely a financial decision, but sometimes people do just decide on the wallet. Someone like Ronaldo, I understand. He's reaching the sunset of his career, so he wants to maximize his
Oh,
profits
he's
and
way past his sunset, and he's still getting paid like crazy amounts of money to like come play.
yeah, he knows that, and
Yeah,
his fans would not probably agree to that. Shashwat,
yeah,
maybe we're going to get some comments on this. They'll be like very upset, saying, "How dare you say this about Ronaldo? Do you know what he's
yeah,
done, what he's doing, and all this?" I'm sure some of them will lash out, but age does catch up to everybody. We're not
yeah.
immortal. None of us are immortal. Even finally, Maradona was taken
Oh yeah,
by
in a
the
very uncharitable way.
correct. So these things do happen. But that being said, I don't know if this is going to be a big boon for Saudi Arabia. We'll have to wait and watch if he's able to create a club environment in the Middle East built around Saudi Arabia. And even the World Cup, which was hosted in Qatar, where they spent a lot of money, finding that infrastructure is being dismantled and being shipped out. They're not even
Yeah.
reusing it. So I don't know if this is the way to go for Saudi Arabia, if this is the way it's going to change them. So, what are your thoughts on that, Shashwat? What I just said?
I mean, there are a few points. One, they'll have to be willing to like keep pouring a lot of money into this. So at any point, if they decide to, pull, it's like an IV. It's like an ICU patient. So at any point you decide to pull the plug, the guy dies. So it's like it's at an infancy stage, and definitely they have to keep paying new players to come in and keep the hype going and rolling. But again, one more thing is that. There's a sort of negative press that's associated with a lot of money being, because football is already seen as a sort of corrupt sport, and a lot of clubs like Manchester City doesn't see the kind of traction it should be for the amount of titles they've won in the past few years, because of the amount of negative press they've gotten, because it's common knowledge that they're just pumping in money and buying the best players and putting them onto the pitch. So I guess that one is to deal with the negative press. Two, you have to be willing to pump in money into this project. And the thing is, even after pumping all this money, it's left to be said whether fans will want to see something like this. But one thing which they have going for them is that if you do like what you said, they're able to bring all those players on board and create an equivalent to the English Premier League. Then yes, I definitely think that you should be able to see dividends being paid out in the future. But this is way far ahead, because you've gotten two big name players, and you're now trying to get players in the periphery to come and play. So there's still more left to be done, a lot more.
What's happened in Australia? The Commonwealth Games is pretty much dead. I don't think the Commonwealth Games are going to be revived or done anything. It's going to be to showcase Commonwealth Games again. Olympics is getting harder and harder to host for countries. Football's also the same thing is happening. It's getting too expensive for countries to host the World Cup or host even in Europe to host the UEFA Cup, and the League Cups are getting more and more expensive for these countries to host it. So people who can only afford to spend this kind of money are totalitarian states or monarchies or dictators who have access to this kind of money, who have access to this
Just
kind of
lying around.
labor, yeah, who can dictate these kind of terms. So it doesn't look good for sports.
No,
And the
and
world,
what's kind of sad is that you don't have to bid it up so much. You don't have to build so much in order to be able to host the Olympics. They hosted the Olympics 100 years back, and they didn't need as much as you are perpetrating that you need right now. Purporting that you need right now. I really doubt that you have to bid so much for it. It's quite sad.
yeah, I agree. And at the end of the day, the problem is the consumers. I mean,
Yeah,
if I'm so crazy about my club and I'm willing to go pay 4,000 rupees for a jersey which can be made for 100 rupees, the making cost is
yeah,
100 rupees, and I'm going to pay 4,000 rupees for it, and not buy it only for myself, buy it for my kids, and encourage this behavior. We as consumers are the ones to blame for this. The fiasco
Yeah,
of football and the corruption in football or any sport is because of us consumers. Because we are pouring so much of money into it, it's gone crazy. For example, you see the Women's World Cup happening in Australia. There's hardly any money in it. There's hardly any eyeballs falling on it because
yeah,
consumers are just not interested. I mean, those poor women and girls are playing their heart out, and some of them are playing brilliantly, but hardly anyone's watching it. Or, compared to the men, immediately I'm sure there's going to be a faction of our
yeah,
fans would feel upset that I'm saying it. But if in comparison to men football, women football
yeah.
doesn't get the same attention. Why? Women cricket in India. Yes, that we have made progress, we have made stride, but it's in no comparison to what Dhoni is getting paid or Virat Kohli gets paid. Is it justified for these guys to get paid this kind of money? You know,
No, and there's always this the people who do supposedly watch this is because they watch it so that they can say that they're watching women's cricket and that they're very whatever gender equal and whatnot. But that's complete nonsense. The problem is that viewership isn't there genuinely, where people are just watching it for the sport itself. That's quite sad. Yeah,
yes, and that's the same kind of lopsided behavior we have within India, where Indian cricket sucks up all the oxygen in the room. Ambanis have been trying for a long time to bring football into India. The Indian Football Club, the Indian Football Leagues, they've been
yeah,
trying whatever the Saudis are trying right now. The Mukesh Ambani is trying with his wife. They're both trying very hard, but the problem is they don't want to throw this kind of money. I don't think you're going to catch Mukesh Ambani throwing $300 million to bring
yeah. I don't think he
Mbappe to
has that
India.
kind of. I don't think he has that kind of leeway anyway.
Yeah, and I think the Reliance shareholders will be rather upset if he takes $300 million and he
Yeah,
brings a football player. But anyway, that being said, these are interesting times. Somehow we see extremes in our society, in our world right now. We have extreme poverty and we have war. We have really collapse of some kind of liberal society happening at one side. Then you have these obscene amount of money being spent, where $1 million, $1 billion, like what Elon Musk does, has no more meaning anymore, has no more value. I mean,
yeah.
what is a billion anymore? It just doesn't make sense. And as investors in the middle of all this, we are sitting here trying to think and be prudent in our investments and not get swayed by these kind of reports. But anyway,
But I think
that be
with 0% interest rates, we should start. I mean, without 0% interest rates, we should start seeing some of this activity come down a little bit at least. Especially
I hope.
this Wednesday, we're gonna have probably another rate hike. So yeah, let's see what happens.
One can hope, Shashwat. One can hope
Yeah,
that humanity would wake up from the stupor we are in with our
yeah,
obsessions of things and wanting. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and enjoyed this conversation, candid conversation me and Shashwat have had about the amount of money involved in football. This is just a candid conversation. It's just an opinion. It is not a statement of fact. And we're not saying it is right or not right. Of course, it's their money, your money. You may wish and do as you please. We are not here to lecture or grandstand with anybody. It's just our views. It's just our views. That's about it. That being said, we plan to do another Q&A session very soon. Shashwat is going through the questions in the videos you guys have posted before in the comments. If there's any more questions you'd like to specifically be addressed by me and Shashwat or Anand, please drop a note down below in this video and in the comments. Shashwat will add them onto our list, which we already have, and we'll try and run through all those questions. And maybe it'll probably be a longer video when we get down to it because there's quite a few questions, and some of the answers and explanations might be a video by
quite
themselves, but we'll
lengthy.
try and combine. Yeah, try and
Yeah,
combine everything together. Thank you for watching Be Rich today. Please do subscribe to our channel and turn on the bell notification icon. And we look forward to seeing you in our next one.
thank you.
Thank you.
I am in Tokyo on work on the 5th of August 2023. I have a lot of following in Japan, Tokyo. Those who want to meet me in Tokyo on 5th August, kindly drop me an email on the address given below or contact us on WhatsApp there. My team would get in touch with you and facilitate the meeting. Once again, I thank you for your support for Be Rich. It's a great privilege and honor that so many of you in thousands have subscribed to my channel and have supported me. I have written 2 books in English, The Alchemy of Money and Ordinary Stocks, Extraordinary Profits. These books are published by us and are ready. If you want to procure a copy, send us a message to the WhatsApp number given below and my team would respond to you. If you want an Amazon Kindle copy, you can click the link below. Finally, Those who wish to consult with me can send a mail to berichenglish@gmail.com. Once again, I thank you for your support. If you like this video, press the subscribe button of my channel, hit the like button and turn on the bell notification.